All right, so we're doing something a little different today. We're taking a deep dive into this podcast called Your Path to Greatness.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's really interesting how they take this whole, like, kind of overwhelming idea of greatness and make it, I don't know, feel accessible.
Totally. It's so easy to be like, oh, greatness is for Elon Musk and Beyonce, not for me. But this podcast really flips the script.
It does. Like, right off the bat, they're like, greatness, it's personal, man. Not some, like, checklist everyone gets, but something tied to what matters to you.
Right. They even had this example I thought was spot on. Remember that time, I think it was last summer, you organized that whole surprise party for your neighbor?
Oh, for Mrs. Rosenberg. Yeah.
And it wasn't about, getting it on Instagram or whatever. It was just everyone was so happy.
She was floored.
And that, they'd say, that feeling, that's closer to the real deal than any award or whatever.
Exactly. Defining success on your terms. Which then gets us to what they say is like the foundation, the engine of it all. And this is kind of cool. Belief.
Oh, interesting. Before goals even.
Before any strategy, it's about believing you've got the potential.
So kind of like you got to be your own hype man before anyone else joins the fan club.
And they were talking about how a lot of successful people, they use stuff like self-affirmations, even mindfulness to build that belief up.
Like it's a muscle. Yeah. The more you use it,
the stronger it gets. Not just repeating nice phrases, but actually catching when you're doubting yourself and going, hold up, is that true? Or
I'm starting to see how this all connects. You need that base of self-belief to even start building towards the big stuff.
Which, speaking of, they're not about vague goals.
No.
Well, crystal clear, got to be actionable. Think of it like you would just get in your car and start driving with no idea where you're going, right?
That'd be a long day. Probably end up somewhere weird.
Goals are your roadmap. So not, I want to be a writer, but
I will finish 10 pages of my novel every week.
Boom. That's specific, because now you can break it down into smaller steps.
Like rungs on a ladder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That big vision at the top. But even with the best roadmap and all the belief in the world, got to put in the work.
They don't let you off easy, huh?
Nope. Whole section on consistent effort. Even had that, quote, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Ooh, that's going on my fridge. It's so true, though. You meet people crazy talented, but they haven't put in the reps.
It's about showing up even when it sucks, even when you're tired.
Or doubting yourself.
Especially then. That's what separates the dreamers from the achievers, they were saying.
Makes you think about, when I get writer's blocks, so tempting to just be like, Netflix it is, but
pushing through is what gets the work done.
So it's about building that discipline, those habits. Okay, what about when things go wrong, though? Because they can't all be good days, right?
Totally. And they're real about that. Setbacks. Part of it. Not about avoiding failure, but how you react to it.
So those moments when it's not how you planned, those aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones.
Exactly. The people who get to greatness, they see those as chances to learn. They adapt, they keep going. But it's not all solo either. They talk about your tribe.
Oh, I was going to ask about that. Like that whole, you're the average of the 5 people you're around most idea.
That's IT. They're saying who you let influence you, huge impact. Mindset, habits, even what you think success is.
So if you're always around negativity, people who shoot down your ideas,
it's going to be way harder.
Not saying ditch your friends if they're having a tough time, but good to look around and be like, is this helping me grow? Or
like tending a garden,
yeah,
a paycheck, whatever. It's like you're part of something bigger.
Leaving a mark on the world, making a difference, not just checking things off a list.
Exactly. They even challenge listeners, think about people you find inspiring. Chances are they're crazy passionate about what they do.
Oh, totally. You can tell, right? When someone's truly lit up by their work.
Yeah.
Makes you want to find that in your own life, too.
And here's something kind of cool they brought up, something we might overlook when we're all focused on, the big dream.
What's that?
Celebrating the small wins.
Oh, I like that. It's so easy to get fixated on the end goal that you forget to, appreciate how far you've come already.
Right. And they were saying it's not just about patting yourself on the back. It actually helps keep you going.
Keeps the motivation up.
Exactly. When you stop and notice your progress, even the little things, it reinforces your belief that you can do it,
Makes those big goals feel less impossible.
Exactly. Each little win is like, hey, I'm on the right track. And eventually, those add up to something huge.
Yeah.
They didn't give, concrete tactics, though, did they, for how to actually celebrate?
Now that you mention it, I don't think so. It was more the principle of it.
Which, now that I think about it, makes sense. Because what feels celebratory is going to be different for everyone.
Oh, totally. Like, I might bake myself a cake, you might go for a run, someone else might.
Write a victory song, whatever works, right? As long as it feels good and reminds you, hey, I'm making progress.
Yeah.
But, with all this talk about personalizing greatness, I think it's worth remembering something they said early on.
What's that?
It's not all about external validation. Like,
Right.
other people saying you're great isn't the point.
Right. They were big on define success for yourself. Live a life that feels good to you.
Which is so important, especially these days. It's so easy to get caught up in comparison.
Social media is constantly showing us, like, everyone else's highlight reel, right? Makes it easy to feel not enough.
And that's where this podcast is like a breath of fresh air. True greatness, it's internal.
It's about, what do they say? Oh, yeah, aligning your actions with your values. Finding your thing and going for it.
And being okay with the messy middle, the stumbles, the doubts, that's all part of it.
As long as you're moving towards something that lights you up.
Precisely. And then they hit us with this curveball question at the end. Gets you thinking.
Oh, I love when they do that. What was it this time?
Collective greatness. Like, if one person going after their passion can be powerful.
What happens when a whole bunny siege of people do it?
Right. Imagine if instead of competing, we all focused on, like, lifting each other up, working towards something bigger.
That's a whole other level. Makes you wonder what we could achieve if everyone bought into that.
So we've got individual greatness, collective greatness. It's like they're saying maybe it's all attainable.
If we just shift our perspective.
Yeah.
And start believing it's possible.
Exactly. And that's incredibly empowering, don't you think? Because it means we all have a role to play.
Whether it's through our own goals or by supporting others who are striving for something amazing.
Precisely. But I'm curious, for you, what's resonating most from all this?
It's funny, right? We talk about greatness like it's this, I don't know, this magical thing.
Reserved for, like, the chosen few. You got to be born with it.
Exactly. But I love how this podcast is like, no, we're debunking that myth right now.
It's a process. You can learn it, and they break it down so well.
The ladder analogy, so good. Makes it way less scary to go after something big.
And they're big on the practical stuff, too. Like, surrounding yourself with the right people, that's something you can control.
Totally. Find those mentors, build each other up, and maybe put a little distance from the folks who bring you down.
Create space for the good stuff to grow.
And it's not selfish either. They actually say taking care of your growth is how you end up making a difference.
Because when you're fired up about your own thing, that passion spreads, man.
It's contagious. And that loops back to their final thought, right? Collective greatness.
Right. If one person going for it can be that powerful, imagine a whole movement of people.
All pushing in the same direction instead of competing. It's like collaborating on a huge scale.
It makes you realize maybe the limits are just what we put on ourselves.
Whoa! Okay, so big takeaways for everyone listening before we wrap up.
Yeah, hit us with them.
Believe in yourself, obviously, right? That's step one. Then get clear on what you want, break it down into those steps.
Put in the work, even when it's tough. Find your people, your cheer squad.
And remember, you've got to do this. We all do. I truly believe that after this deep dive.
Me too. I would go out there and make something amazing, everyone. We'll be right here rooting for you.
Absolutely. Until next time.